Wait, you want me to what? I know that sounds dumb, but please hear me out, okay? I was being chased by those flying bugs lately. I must have angered them somehow. I figured I might have called them the wrong thing, or said that the two of them are the same. And last night I've had dreams about them flying and buzzing around me, not leaving me alone. Now it's bugging me to death. Pardon the pun. What I'm saying is, are they bees? Are they hornets? I have to know what the difference is. And you're asking me, of all people. Yes? Very well then. You're not the only one who has had those nightmares. So, according to the list of this contest participants, your name is DanJo underscore Odo, correct? Yeah. And if I recall correctly, you have a YouTube channel by the name of DanJo the Mysterious? Yep, that's me. Okay, DanJo, allow me to show you something. This is a bee, and this is a hornet. Do you see the difference between these two? Oh, now I get it! Thanks, Mega Man. I'll make sure to not make that same mistake again. I mean, it's not like I'm a therapist or anything, but sure, no problem. Although, I do have one more question I want to ask. And what's that? Why are we still here? Well, it seems we have one more Tier 1 level to go through. So of course we're still going to be in this rusted dump. No, I mean you've been staring at this old rusted UFO for hours. It doesn't hurt to have a sense of nostalgia, okay? Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube! DanJo, the Mysterious here, and welcome to episode 12 of MaGMML3. After learning the differences between the bees and the hornets, we get to 166th place, ultimate level by SM3000L, with a score of 30.4, 27, 21, 48, 24, 32. No penalty this time. Ultimate level of Tier 1, I bet. Alright, let's do this. Okay then. Hi, this is my first level, Ultimate level. I'm new in this stuff of MaGMML. I have a little experience of Game Maker Studio. Okay, now, enjoy the level. I will. Let's see how you fare, shall we? Or at least, if I enjoy your level or not. Looks decent so far. Oh no. It's one of those Pacato 24s again. And it's paired up with the Sniper Joe. That's just nice. If you know anything about Pacato 24s in the MaGMML community, you would know how strict the timing is in trying to defeat those guys. I can think of one level that's... or one MaGMML2 level that's infamous for its use of Pacato 24s. It was just not fun. Let's hope that this contest remedies this. Well, if you want to defeat these guys Buster only, you may as well charge a Buster. Works like a charm. I must have seen this gimmick before. And a key coin. Okay. Now, how do I get to the other side? Maybe... Not that! That did not work at all. Oh well, generous with its
checkpoint placement there. Oh boy, there's auto-scrolling. There is auto-scrolling. Oh no. I'm sorry, I did not expect auto-scrolling in this level. Specifically at this part. I just, gotta be careful not to activate the sideways count bomb. Well, bye-bye. Okay. Another mini-boss. A Metropolitan. Very easy to defeat. Thank you for an E-Tank. I needed another one of those after fighting the dreaded Hornet Men. Yeah, thanks for that. Those things are pretty big. There's nothing there. Alright. The end is near. I hope you're ready. Oh, I sure am ready. I was not ready for that! Oh, man. Okay, then. Sunly Tellies. Spawning from who knows where. I'll be appearing through the shadows. Oh, whoa there, Shadow Mega Man. Alright. Oh no. I don't have the key anymore. Come on. Oh, I'll worry about that later. Let's go ahead and fight Quint with gravity flippers? Or a gravity mechanic? Wonder if you could interact with it. No, you cannot. Okay, then. It's worth a shot. What's even the point of that gravity gimmick? I have no idea. But still, I know there's a trickster token over there. The only problem is I need to keep the key in order to open the door without dying. That's the big issue here. And with the way the checkpoints are placed, this does not make it any easier. Or better. Because you can't go back and get it. What? Uh-huh? Who knew that you could die by that? Okay, gotta be more careful with those platforms. Ay, ay, ay. What a way to go. But anyway, I have to go back and get the key coin, which contains the key, and get to the key door, careful, all without dying. Like I have done not too long ago. Well, this is getting a bit annoying. Oh, well. try not to get squished here. You're getting pretty annoying. Okay, that works wonders. Alright, there's that key coin again. Now. Okay. Okay, you just have to do that. That works. Now let's not die. Hello again, Metropolitan. Okay. Trying to stay focused. One. Oh, come on! Okay, retrying only sends you back to the checkpoint. No, I don't want to continue at the checkpoint. I want to start over and get that key coin again. Here we go again. That works like a charm at least. Never have enough. Never have too much bolts. Okay. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay. Okay. Gotta be careful this time. Trying my best not to die here, as you can see. Especially with insta-kill fire and bombless pits or whatever. I am not taking any chances this time. Timing on that jump is strict, let me tell you. Okay. Okay, just had to make sure it was not a trap from you, Eddie. Thank you for the Trickster token. Took me a while. Now then, if you don't mind, I'll be hanging out here for a while. That battle was all too easy with that gravity gimmick around. Alright. Judge comments? This level is called Ultimate, but it doesn't seem to be shouting about Maria very much. Slash says a joke. As for what it does do, well, not a lot actually. While yes, this level has a lot of different pieces, the majority of the actual design is basic jumps and flat surfaces. This takes any potential variety and curbs it, with the vast majority feeling samey, even though there's a new toy in every room. Variety is a good thing to have, but it's a variety of scenarios that create interesting design, not a grab bag of pieces with the same window dressing. That being said, there are some specific moments I need to cover. First, there's an unnecessary amount of pixel-perfect jumps in this stage. They're not exactly difficult since you can just use utilities, but the access makes this a bit tedious. Secondly, while the idea of carrying a key through the level is a neat one, I'm not sure I appreciate how easily the checkpoints can screw over the player. Granted, if that didn't happen, there would be no difficulty in getting the level's token, but having to restart everything for one little mistake often leaves a bitter taste. I'd have much preferred an actual challenge to fake difficulty. Still, as a first level, this really isn't bad, a bit on the boring side, which really hampers my ability to talk about it, and a touch too many tedious parts, but there is a foundation here. My main piece of advice: a variety of scenarios with a small handful of gimmicks is usually more effective for level design. Quality over quantity, and don't be afraid to experiment with different placements. Oh, the custom graphics were pretty. Regularly appearing black backgrounds got dull fast, but otherwise they looked nice. I don't want to turn this review into a full-on lecture, but assuming the text box at the beginning isn't a joke or some elaborate trollish ploy, then I'd like to give you some advice. When it comes to level design, there's a number of things you need to keep in mind. One of them includes proper introduction to new gimmicks and enemies so they don't blindside the player. This stage goes against that basic design principle in a number of ways. I'm not saying your enemy and gimmick setups need to be hand-holding levels of easy, but they should at least let the player get a proper feel for what they're going to be put up against. Putting them in a situation like the start of the stage, where two different dropping platforms are introduced over instant death, is a bit much for an introduction, and having two new enemy types waiting for you on the other side of those platforms isn't doing it any favors. This stage also suffers heavily from the one-and-done problem, where a gimmick or enemy will appear and then never show up for the rest of the stage. A good chunk of the level is like this, for that matter. Funnily enough, despite the stage being so frantic with its constant use of different enemies and gimmicks, it's still relatively easy. The only points where things become somewhat tricky are during certain 4-tile-wide jumps, a few of which I don't think are possible without utilities. And then there's the fight against Quint. While I'm all for changing up things with vanilla engine bosses, I can't help but wonder what the point was of adding gravity flippers to Quint's fight. It only seems to serve to make him easier than he already was. At least that's what I'm getting out of it anyways. Overall, this definitely isn't the worst level I've ever played, very far from it in fact, but still not particularly good either. Practice makes perfect though, and I know you can improve immensely over this. Ultimate level! MaGMML3. It's okay. For a first ever level, can definitely see some beginning designers' mistakes, such as not introducing your gimmicks first in a safe environment. Several of the platforms first appear over a bottomless pit, especially rough with the placement of Pacato 24. Mandatory 4-tile jumps that requires the player to do them almost pixel perfect. All gimmicks and enemies come and go, never to be used again for the rest of the stage. Minor complaints, but no walls where the screens, and makes it somewhat annoying to secret hunt. The powered up switch setup is also quite precise without using weapons. The gravity flippers make the Quint fight a little more interesting than normal, but said gimmick was never introduced in the stage itself, so it could be confusing for players who have not seen this gimmick prior. Granted, it's a dev kit asset, but the point still stands that proper gimmick handling is important. I could almost believe this is a legitimate attempt at a real level. What with the reasonably kind checkpoint placement, thoroughly normal length, good sounding music, and graphics that vaguely look like something I guess But then there's an ambush by Pacato24 and Sniper Joe, and his near sign secretly forecasting a cheap death, and a halfway interesting fight with a boss who's notorious for not being taken seriously, which collectively make it hard to believe that anything named Ultimate Level ever had any intention of being good. This level is neither truly ultimate nor ironically unultimate. It's a series of unrelated, uninspired challenges taking up space in a visually and architecturally barren location. And it smells like a half-buttered attempt at a troll level. If you're going to troll us, do it right! Subvert expectations, mess with our heads, pile on the pain until it's preposterous, but demonstrate just enough restraint to keep from getting excluded. This level demonstrates so much restraint that it almost doesn't have an identity. Aside from an aforementioned ambush, sign, and boss, which actually kinda worked to an extent, you could have had a promising career as a troll if you really wanted to, virtually no risks are taken. This feels like an early draft in which the designer was still trying out different ideas and getting a handle on how collision objects work. Any difficulty stems from fleeting setbacks and mild inconveniences. Once you know where the beginner traps are, the hardest part about getting the token is having the patience to play this level a second time. A good level should be fun to play. A good troll level should be fun to watch other people play. This level? This is ultimately a level. Unfortunately, there is very little substance to this level. There are a huge number of enemies and gimmicks used exactly once and never seen again. It is very hard to show any kind of progression or focus in the level of unique assets. Because of this fundamental flaw, there isn't a lot more talk about the level. There are a couple of positives. The graphics were pretty well tiled and put together, though lacking detail in the background, and the music was awesome. Funnily enough, the Quint fight was pretty enjoyable because of how silly it ended up being. Checkpoints were also pretty well placed, though one does bypass the puzzle, so shrug. There are a few pixel-perfect or even impossible buster-only sections in the level, which are pretty obnoxious and break what little flow the level has. The token requiring no death is not a particularly fun concept, especially when you can be locked out via checkpoint later on. It is obvious this is a first attempt, but I would recommend looking at other levels and limiting what assets to use in the future. Also, try to get other members of the community to have a look at your level before you submit it and take advice from them. Well, I will give you this. It is quite the first attempt.
Number 166. Ultimates Level by SM3000L.
You're saying this is your first level of the MaGMML contest, right? And you got some experience with Game Maker Studio to prove that. Well, in that case, let's see how you did. First off, I'd like to point out a big highlight in your level, and that is with the aesthetics. Why, with the way the background is implemented and how the main platform texture looks, plus the animated coals of fire as replacement for the usual spikes. It does look rather solid. Not outstanding, but a pretty good looking level nonetheless. What also helps in terms of aesthetics is the music you chose. Quite the foot tapper if I do say so myself. That, however, is where the positives end. I'm going to get the main issue out of the way now. Just about every gimmick and enemy are used once and never used again. Some of these gimmicks are introduced with bottomless pits and spike pits, or fire pits in this case, as well as enemies that can knock you off into said pits. This is not a good way of introducing them. It's best that you first introduce these things in a safe environment before you make gradually more difficult and interesting challenges out of them. That is, if you even chose to capitalize on that in the first place. It's as if you didn't know what to do with these gimmicks or enemies that you just implemented in one section of your level and decided that you need to replace all of that with new ones in the next section. It's like you have ADHD. I decided that for my level, I'm going to put these platforms right here, so that way when players stand on them for too long, they'll fall off. Matter of fact, let's add on a couple of enemies that can knock them off, leading them to their demise. Yeah, that'll show them. Now, what else can I do with them? I'll figure it out after I put a big penguin robot in the player's path. That and a few cannons in the next section too. What was I doing again? Never mind, let's get some building blocks in there. May as well add these worms to knock players off while I'm at it. Never mind if they happen to get squished for some reason. Ooh! Scratch what I did previously, I have a new toy to play with. Let's not forget the key coin. I'll decide where to place the key door later. Actually, this is getting kinda boring. Time to play around with cat bombs and auto-scrolling! Whee! Every section of your level is like that. Speaking of though, allow me to talk about more noteworthy gimmicks you have here. For example, the aforementioned auto-scrolling section. You know it's a bad sign when 1. First-time players would be completely unprepared for it, and 2. It's so short that it makes me wonder why it's even there to begin with. At least the count bombs make it somewhat interesting. For 5 seconds. But again, you didn't capitalize on that. There are also tellies that seem to come out from the shadows, and a shadow copy that can easily be avoided if you're fast enough. Clever way of introducing that shadow copy, not gonna lie. It's a shame that you don't capitalize. Even the boss room has a gimmick that's never seen your level beforehand. And that gimmick is turning you upside down? Not only does that have nothing to do with the rest of the stage, Quint cannot interact with it like you can. Which means it makes the fight with him a cakewalk once you just sit there on the ceiling and spam any weapon you have at your disposal. That and he can't reach you. At all. Sure, you can just ignore the gravity flip tile and fight him normally, but then that would make the whole gimmick meaningless. Really didn't plan this out, did you? But of course I have to talk about the switch blocks and the only key coin in the level. Why not just make it a key? Grabbing the key coin is easy enough. The only problem after is going through the rest of the linear path until you reach the key door. Trying to go over the insta-kill fire pit with the switch block seems to be no easy task, whether you're doing it with special weapons or with a buster. But as it turns out, it doesn't matter whether you survived or died in this section, because even if you died, you'll just respawn at the other side and get a key coin as a freebie. Here's the catch though. There are not 1, but 2 checkpoints after the room with the switch blocks. Normally that seems beneficial, but since there's a trickster token behind the key door, it also seems they like to go out of their way to mess with you. As in, if you die at any point after reaching one of 2 checkpoints before reaching the key door, you can't go back and get the key, which means you have to start the whole level all over again. The acid drop room is the most egregious of this if you're doing this buster only. Sure, you can use special weapons and utilities to mitigate this, but it's still pretty annoying. You know, for a level named Ultimate Level, I expect a grandiose stage of 1, maybe 2 dev kit assets, along with some enemies here and there, used in clever and interesting ways, making things gradually more challenging as the level progresses, and maybe some neat optional bonuses to look out for. Not a level filled with gimmicks and enemies placed down only once just to feel neglected once they're replaced with different ones. Ultimate Level. More like ultimate failure. Now, I'm not saying it's a terrible level, far from it actually. It just has a lot of wasted potential to be sorted out. Though as you yourself stated before, it is only your first attempt at making a Mega Man level, specifically with Game Maker Studio, and for a first attempt at level making, it is a decent showing. But for a contest level, it left a lot to be desired. Oh well, there's always room for improvement when designing levels, so let's hope you do better next time. Who knows? Maybe you'll have the power to make your next level even more ultimate than the last. I'm going to give Ultimate Level by SM3000L 36 out of 100. Okay, it seems like we're nearly done with the first tier. This has been DanJo, the Mysterious, and the sooner we get out of this rusted dump that is Tier 1, the better. Until we meet again.